I am just a couple hours away from being done converting this Honda Prelude, which used to be front wheel drive, which will now be rear wheel drive. You do know that there's people watching that have no idea what that means, right? Yeah, that's no problem. It's actually pretty simple. So basically, if I had this car on jack stands or on a hoist and the wheels were not touching the ground, on a front wheel drive vehicle, when you hit the gas, the front wheels would spin and the back wheels would do nothing. Now, this is fine for most cars because generally it's more efficient, a lot less complex, and cheaper to have a front wheel drive system. And that's pretty much because the power from this engine is getting sent to the two wheels that are closest to the engine, which basically means smaller and less parts, and there's less of a power loss. And now this Honda Prelude behind me may have came front wheel drive from the factory, but I always believed that they should have been rear wheel drive. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure why Honda didn't do this. But anyway, if front wheel drive is simpler, easier, and cheaper than rear wheel drive, and converting from one to the other is even harder than that, then why do I want to convert this to rear wheel drive? That's probably because you're nuts. No, well, maybe. The main reason is when it's rear wheel drive and you hit the gas, the rear wheels spin, and that's gonna allow me to do a lot more things that I would be able to do if it was front wheel drive. For example, drifting. We all know what drifting is, right? Drifting is essentially taking your car and whipping out the tail end and sliding back and forth. Now there's a couple ways that you can do it, but with rear wheel drive, the idea is to get the wheels spinning so fast that you actually lose traction and the back of the car ends up sliding back and forth. Now technically you can drift with front wheel drive, but not really. It's just not the same. Now, another reason that I want to convert this car to rear wheel drive is launching, drag racing, and pretty much accelerating off a dead stop. Now, how does rear wheel drive come into effect with that? Well, if you've ever noticed before, when cars accelerate, they tend to rock backwards, and that's weight transfer. Now, what the weight transfer does for rear wheel drive, it actually puts more weight on the back wheels, giving you more traction and less of a chance of slipping. Now, launching your car with front wheel drive is still possible, but because of the weight transfer going to the back of the car, you'll have a lot less traction and you'll probably hear some screeching and spinning tires. Now, could I have just gone and bought a rear wheel drive car? Yeah, but do I also like being different and taking on insane project cars and taking my imagination and turning them into a reality? Yeah, that is very specific. Like I said, we're almost done, so let me show you what I've already done and what I gotta do today. So if we go inside the car, you can actually see the rear axle in there along with some of the control arms. These are the upper control arms. There are two lower control arms that are underneath the car, but you can't see them, but those are not what we need to worry about today. These upper control arms are way too long and they need to be shortened. And the reason is because they come far into the car to the point where I can't even close this off and separate the bottom of the car from the inside of the car. Now, why did I even do this in the first place? Because I was excited. It was very, very easy to set up this rear axle because if I just came straight off the axle, it led to a very structural part of the car. And honestly, I just wanted to get it done. So as it sits now, the car actually does roll. The rear axle is already set up with custom suspension and brackets, and the front is also set up with its own suspension as well. So I actually have a rolling rear wheel drive Prelude now. But I want to fix this because this is just not right. So basically, I got to shorten these control arms and I'm going to add a support from one side of the car to the other, and that'll be the new point that I weld these two. So first things first is I'm going to remove these control arms, and this is the square tubing that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to clean that up. Then I got to mark where it's going to go in the car, tack that in place, and then get my new measurements so that I can know what to cut down these control arms to for their new length. Oh man, okay, well, I just spent way longer than I would like to admit setting up the car with a bunch of jack stands everywhere. So now the car is not touching the ground, and it seems like the rear axle is staying in place because again, I want this to be exactly how it is right now. Same angle, same everything. I just need to shorten these control arms. So right now we are good. There's no tension here. I can remove these and the axle is staying in place. All right, so now that I got these control arms loose, I can remove them if I wanted to right now, but I realize the square tubing that I'm gonna be putting in won't interfere with the control arms as they sit. So I'm gonna work on getting that support in first. That way, when I'm doing all the welding and grinding, I can double check afterwards that the rear axle hasn't moved because I just gotta see if these still line up when I'm done. I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna put the support right here, so I'm gonna remove this and the other one on the other side. Now that I got those out of the way, I wanna see how the square tubing fits in here. Okay, I just need to cut out a small piece of this metal here and here, and I should be good. Oh, that seems like a perfect fit. Okay, now that I know that it fits, I'm gonna take it out, clean it up, and then we'll weld this in place. All right, it's all cleaned up now, and if you were wondering why it was so dirty to begin with, that's because Fred gave it to me for free, and he had a whole bunch of metal laying around his shop, and all I had to do was find a piece that worked for me, cut it, and clean it up, and I didn't have to pay anything. Now let's get some primer on this thing so that we can weld it in place. So the square tubing is dry now, and I'm going to put it in place. It's pretty hard to maneuver in here, I'm not gonna lie. I also want to protect myself because I'm just wearing shorts for some stupid reason. But yeah, guys, now you can see that this is in place where it needs to be. You know what really sucks about working on this car alone? I get all situated in the car there and it's kind of crammed, you know, you get comfortable, you get all set up. Luckily, I got it tacked in so that it's not gonna move, it's where it needs to be. But I wanted to get a little bit more tacks in there. But the welding tip got dirty, I think, and I think it's causing like a short circuit, so it's not actually working, so I got to clean up the welding tip. It just sucks when you're set up in the car already and you just want to keep working. All right, so now that the support is tacked in, obviously not enough, but enough for now that we know where it's going to be. Now we need to shorten up the control arms so that we can find a spot to weld them to this. And I have a couple of these brackets that I tried using before, but they didn't work. But now, since I still have them, I can reuse them for this application. And what I'm thinking is something along the lines of under here. Obviously, this is in the way right now. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. And I'm gonna do something like this so that we will be welded to the bottom of the beam and we can mount the control arm right there. So what I'm gonna have to do is remove the control arm. I need this end to stay this way, and this is the side that I'm gonna cut from. And what I gotta do is remove the bracket from the control arm so that I can slide this further in and cut it to a shorter length. So now that I have this part of the control arm separated from the rest of the control arm, what I can do is try to mock this up to get an idea of where I need to cut this to shorten it. And it seems like the control arm is too long to even measure, so I'm gonna end up cutting it 2 times. 1 time so that I can shorten it up enough that I can push it in further enough, and then I can get a more accurate measurement on where to mark it for the final time. We're gonna set that up something like that so that it is in line with the bracket, and now we can get a proper measurement. So I cut this one more time, not gonna lie, didn't feel like recording it because I didn't want to move everything again. I just want to get this done. So there's a few things I gotta do here. I'm gonna put this roughly where it goes just to make sure that I am good with my measurements, and it seems like we are. I'm gonna hold the bracket roughly where I want it, which is right about there. And now I want to mark where I need to sand. And scuff it up a little bit so we can try to expose that metal underneath. And now we can tack it in place. Okay, we're doing pretty good now. Just got to shorten up this side and do the same thing over here. No, I forgot to turn the gas on for the welder. Wow, would you look at that? It's almost like the other side just miraculously cut itself and everything's done and I didn't have to record any of it. Okay, that is a good feeling. I've been meaning to do this for so long, and just to see that the control arms are shortened, it looks a lot cleaner. And there's actually a way to close this all up now. That feels good. Now I still want to take this apart and probably give it a coat of paint just to protect it, even though no one's really going to see it. But tomorrow Fred's coming with his big welder and we're going to go around everything in the back there. Everything that's just been tacked together, and we're going to weld it all solid. That's kind of why I'm rushing to get this done. So we're basically going to have the entire back end welded up. I've also received this carburetor from Andrew, if you've seen a couple videos ago. So I'm going to test fit that and probably get that in place. I also received a little care package from Lindsay Drive Line. Now they're the ones that are going to be doing my drive shaft. He sent me this measuring card so that I can measure up the yokes and make sure everything's good. So I should be ordering that hopefully in the next couple days. I also got some wiring to do for the battery, and I got the main lugs that I'm going to be using. And I even got myself this hydraulic crimping tool, which I'm very excited about. And on top of that, the headers that I ordered should be arriving today. And later this week, I'm gonna be going to a junkyard to hopefully be pulling an entire serpentine system off of a Silverado or any 4.3 that I can find. So I'm pretty excited. I hate welding. We're getting this out of the way, and then we can get into the fun stuff. And then hopefully this workbench could start cleaning up a little bit. And now we're seeing some real progress on this car. So I'm gonna get this car off of jack stands. I'm gonna roll it up closer to the front door there just to get ready for tomorrow when Fred gets here and we can start welding. We're just about to hit 15K subs and it feels amazing. I wanna say thank you guys very much. And if you've gotten this far in the video and you haven't clicked that red button, make sure you do so. You guys got to my channel at a great time because there's a bunch of momentum behind me right now. I'm not gonna stop. We're working on this car, and we're gonna do some really cool stuff when we finally get it on the road. I still can't get over the fact that this is gonna be a Honda Prelude, and when I fire it up, you're gonna hear an old school Chevy muscle car. It's gonna be so badass, I can't wait. Now, if you guys wanna help me out big time, go watch this video and watch to the very end. The reason is, if you guys watch more of my content, I get more views, and more views helps me out. As some of you guys know, I recently took this on to be my full-time gig as a full-time content creator, and it's free for you guys to watch my videos, and it helps me out a lot more than you know. All right, now you can go watch that video.